Alright, welcome to another video. This is going to be the last video of the series on the introduction to ct.js game engine, and it was very short, but I'm pretty sure you can get up and going with this information. And by the end of this tutorial, we're gonna be having a platformer character controller that works and it's very easy to make. So let's get to it. Alright, so this is where we left off. We currently only have the character floating on a blank screen. So we're gonna turn this into a platformer type of game. So we're gonna have our character fall down into a platform, move left or right, and jump. For that, we're gonna need some platforms. So let's go ahead and do that. Hit done, just in case you were in the room. If not, just come over here to the types section on our character type, open it, and just delete everything we did on the last tutorial. Just delete everything on here, and this move that's on here also delete. Make sure every tab is empty. Once you have an empty character type again, let's come over here to textures, hit on that, and then we can create a new placeholder that is gonna be our platform. Let's label it platform. We're gonna change the color. I'm just gonna make it white. You can make it whatever color you want. We're gonna hit on create and close. So we have another texture. Let's create a type from it. And on this type, we don't need any code or logic, so just hit done. Let's go ahead and place our platforms in the room. Select the platform, and if you see over here it says shift equals multiple. So if we hold down the shift key and we click and drag, you can see that we create platforms. And you can see right here I messed up, so I put one here, and to delete it we can right click and delete. I've noticed that if you do it on the bottom, you see like right now it's selected the other one, so right now if I do this, it deleted the other one. So just to be safe, make sure you do it in the upper left corner. Right there, you never miss, and you can delete whatever or if you place some other platforms that you don't want, you can see control equals delete, so just hold control and click and drag. That's easier, whatever works for you. So we have our platform over here. That should be good. Alright, so now we're gonna need some type of input that makes our character, that's gonna make a character move left, right, or jump as the player hits the keyboard, right? So just hit done to exit the room. Come over here to project and settings, and you see over here we have actions and input methods. Hit on that, and we're gonna add a new action that is gonna be named move. To this action, we're gonna add some input methods. Let's add a new one. Let's select the right arrow, select that, and add another input method. Select the D key, select that, and we're also going to add the left arrow and the A key. To the left arrow and the A key, we're gonna put a -1. So this should look like this. Right here we have an action that is named move, and this action is going to be triggered every time the user presses either the right arrow key or the D key, and it's gonna be triggered with a value of 1. Or if the player hits the arrow left or the A key, it's gonna be triggered with a value of -1. Later under the code, you can see if we come over here to input and actions, you can see that we can use ct.actions.move x or y or whatever plus the value, and you can use this on code. So we can later pull these values on code every time the player hits any of these keys with these values, and then we can do on code, make it move left or right with these values. We're gonna do that in a little bit, but first we need to add another action for jumping. So name it jump. Our jump action. Add input methods. There's gonna be a spacebar. We're also gonna add the up arrow, and we're also gonna add the W key. So we can jump with space, with arrow up, or with the key W. Multiplier of 1 because we want to jump up. So this should be everything for the input and actions and input methods. It should look just like this. This is very important that you name it with capital move and the capital J also in jump, so your code works as mine. Alright, let's go ahead and write the logic for this. Jump over here to types, open the character type. This should be clean. So first of all, we're gonna need to set some properties for our character. We do this by setting variables on the onCreate tab. So when our character type is created on the room, this will be triggered. So the first property we're gonna need is this jump speed. We're gonna set it equals 9, and I'm using the same information that it's over here in the platformer tutorial, which works great. It will be this right here. So I urge you, if you haven't done this, you should follow these tutorials also, which cover a lot of information that I'm not covering. I'm just going quick and to the point, but this information you might need, so you should read it. I always recommend you read the official tutorials. But continuing over here, for our character, we do this jump speed equals -9, because if you remember from the image I showed you in the last video on ct.js, the y positive is going down, so our y negative is going up. So we're gonna jump up by 9 pixels. You'll see that in a little bit. Let's create more properties. We're gonna need the gravity property. Gravity, we're gonna set it equals to 0.5. We're also gonna need a variable, which will be horizontal speed equals to 0, and vertical speed equals to 0 also, because when our character just gets created, we want our speeds to be 0 because we're not moving. This code, onCreate code, runs when the type is created. OnStep is gonna run every frame. So for every frame, we're gonna set the value of the speed variable to 4, and we're gonna multiply this by ct.delta. And if you know a little bit of Unity or any other game engine, you're gonna know what delta is, but if you don't, we multiply the speed by delta. This works so we can have consistent movement on different frame rates. If you drop frames, you won't even notice that when on the character movement. So after this, we want to set the vertical speed. So we're gonna do an if ct.actions dot move is down. So this is an if condition. This code is gonna run if this condition is met. And what is this condition? Remember, we had our action move over here in the settings. Our action move. If the player hits any of the movement keys, we want to move. We want to move either left or right. So let's create another condition. So if my action move value is greater than 0, I want to do this, else if actions move the value is less than 0, I want to do this. Alright, so right now what's going on right here? We're setting a condition that if the action move is down, if any of the keys under move action is down, we're gonna enter into these other conditions. So this condition, the other condition we have is that if the value is greater than 0, we're gonna move right. And if the value is less than 0, we're gonna move left. How is this? When the move action is down, we return one of two values, either 1 or -1. It depends on the key that the player hit. So let's say that for this example, the player hit the right arrow key. It's gonna return the move dot value is gonna return 1. So the move dot value is gonna return 1, which is greater than 0. So right here, we want to move right. We want to make our character move right. Now, so we set the horizontal speed to the speed. What's going on here? Remember, we have some variables here. We have horizontal speed set to 0. And over here we have the speed equals to 4 times delta. So right now, if the player hits any key of any of the movement keys and it returns a value of 1 or greater than 0, it's gonna set the horizontal speed. This one is gonna set it to 4 or whatever is 4 times delta, which is gonna be positive, right? So the player will move right. Else if. So if the value is not greater than 0, this is not gonna happen. This is gonna be skipped. So else if the move value is less than 0 or -1, we're gonna move to the other side. So we just make this value a negative. A -4. So our speed is gonna be negative if our move value is negative. So if we hit arrow left or the key A, the value is negative, so our speed is gonna be negative. So we're gonna move left. I hope this is clear. If not, you can leave me questions on the commentaries, or you can come to any of the links I'm gonna leave on the end of the video, and I'm there so you can ask me questions. But I hope this is clear. Alright, so what happens if the player does not hit any of the movement keys? So we're gonna hit on else. So if the player does not press any of the movement keys, we want the horizontal speed to be 0. So if we are not hitting any of the movement keys, we don't want to move. So the speed, horizontal speed, is equals to 0. Alright, so we just set the horizontal speed, which is gonna handle the movement either right or left. So after this, we want to handle the vertical speed, which is basically the jumping. So the first thing we want to do is enter into another condition. After handling this, after setting our horizontal speed, we want to jump into another condition that is gonna say if ct.place.occupied. The place is a cat mod that is activated by default. Where is it at? Input place. That is the check for collisions, move copies continuously, and add basic collision avoidance to your copies. So we're gonna be using the place check for collisions right here. We come over here to the types. We have ct place occupied. So you can hover and you get your information. Determines if the place in X and Y is occupied. You also have a lot of information over here. In the modules documentation, place collision checks. So you can read this and learn to use this module. Right now we're gonna check for collisions to see if the player is hitting a platform. And if it's not hitting a platform, then we need to fall down. So we're gonna call the place occupied, and this takes a few parameters. There's gonna be this object, which is our character. So if our character in its X position and in this Y position is hitting the solid group. And this reminds me, let's place our brackets over here. Alright, so this reminds me that I forgot a step, a very important step. Let's come back over here to, let's hit done and open the platform type, and right here, collision group. We need to make the platform a solid collision group. So on our code, we can look for the solid group and react to it. So right now our platform types are of the group solid. Hit done. Let's go back to our character on step. Alright, so right here we're gonna check if this character in the X or Y position is colliding with a solid group, which in this case will be any of the platform types we placed on a room. All these are solid groups. So if a character touches a solid group, it's gonna return a true. It's gonna collide. We want to check just on the bottom of our Y position. Why? Because we want to check if we are grounded, which is if just one pixel underneath it's hitting a solid group. That's what we're interested in. So if we come over here to our this Y position, we add 1. Remember, positive is down, so we are adding a 1 pixel down of our current character. So if a solid group is 1 pixel down on the Y of our character, so right here 1 pixel, we're gonna be grounded or hitting our platform. If not, if we're not hitting the platform, then we want to fall down. So we set the vertical speed equals this gravity, and we account for frame drop with delta. Remember this? So right now we're setting our gravity equals to our vertical speed, and this will make it fall down. But we don't want to just set it, we want to add it every time. And to do that, we add a plus sign just behind the equal sign. So instead of replacing this with this, it's just gonna add. So if this is 0, then we add what is the gravity? 0.5. So we add a 0.5 times delta, and then to that, on the next frame, if these conditions meet, then to that 0.5 we add another 0.5. So it's 1, and then 1.5, and then 2, and it keeps adding. So this is very important. So right now we're checking for collisions with the solid group just underneath our character, and that will be grounded. And if we're not grounded, then our gravity kicks in. But what if we are grounded? We want to enter on another condition. We want to check if we jumped. We check if we hit the jump key. So if we are grounded, we want to jump. So we set the vertical speed to the jump speed. Remember, we had the jump speed from over here. Jump speed equals to -9. So we set jump speed. And if we're not jumping, then we want to set the vertical speed to 0. Because once we hit a platform, we want to stop. So right here, what's going on? Let's go over it again. This is setting the vertical speed. Up here we set the horizontal speed. If we move right or left. Alright? And over here we're checking if we are grounded. If we are grounded and if we hit jump, then we jump. If not, we just don't stop moving down, so no more gravity effect. But if we're not grounded, then we come over here and we set the gravity effect. So we're handling the horizontal speed and the vertical speed, and this should be enough, right? So hit done and launch our game. See what happens. I'm hitting keys and nothing's going on, right? Come over here to the types again, character. Nothing's going on because we're currently only setting the values of the speed we want. Now we need to do the actual movement. So how do we actually handle the movement for a platformer type? For this, we're gonna need to enter into a for cycle. This for cycle is gonna run for the same amount of pixels you want to move in a frame. Remember that the movement is by pixels. So our jumping speed is 9 pixels per frame, our gravity is 0.5 per frame, and our speed when we create it, it's 0. But after we move, our horizontal speed is 4. So our cycle is gonna run 4 times in one frame. And let me write this and I'll keep explaining so you can copy this, and I'll explain it right now. Alright, what's going on here? So we're gonna enter into a for cycle. and this cycle is gonna start in 0 and it's gonna run as many pixels as we want to move per frame. What is math.abs? Math.abs returns the absolute value of a number. For example, the absolute value of -5 if it's the same as the absolute value of 5. So basically, it's always gonna be positive. So if our horizontal speed is negative, it doesn't matter. It's gonna turn it into positive. So it will be 7, 8, or whatever your speed is, positive. So if we're setting our speed to, let's say, 4, that means that for each frame we want to move 4 pixels. We're gonna move for those 4 pixels. So our 4 cycle is gonna move 4 times. And this just means that for the first cycle, the I is 0, and for the next cycle, we're gonna add 1 to I. So the I is gonna be 1, 1 is less than 4, so it's gonna be a cycle, and then add 1, so I is 2, and 2 is less than 4 still, so the cycle is gonna keep going until it reaches 4, or reaches the speed at which we want to move. So after the cycle is done, our character is gonna be moved by the amount of pixels we want to move per frame. I hope this is clear. Let's continue. Alright, so we enter into a cycle. In this cycle, before moving, we want to make sure that we're not colliding with the platform or anything, right? So let's write a condition, and let's check for collisions, but this time instead of occupied, we're gonna choose free, which does the opposite. Occupied returns true if it hits what we give it, and free is gonna return true if we're not hitting what we gave it. So we're gonna give this character in this position X, this position X, and this position Y. And we're gonna be checking again against the solid group again. But this time we want to check our horizontal movement. So this time it will be on our X. We want to add 1. I'll explain this in a little bit. Horizontal speed. Alright, let me explain this. So after we enter into a cycle, we check if this condition is met. I'm gonna put my brackets. Alright. What is this condition? If we are not hitting any of the solid group, then we enter on the condition. But we're checking on this character's position X plus mat sign horizontal speed. What is this mat sign? Returns the sign of the X, indicating whether X is positive, negative, or 0. So if horizontal speed is positive, this is going to return 1. If horizontal speed is negative, this is going to return -1. It doesn't matter, this can be 8, it will be 1. If this is -100, it will be -1. And if this is 0, it will be 0. So we are basically checking on our X position. If it's positive, it's gonna be 1 pixel to the right. Or if the speed is negative, it's gonna be 1 pixel to the left. So with this line, we are checking for collisions with the solid group on the right if we are moving right, or on the left if we are moving left. So if the place is free, then we can move. And this is where we actually move our character. With this, and we add to it the mad sign of this horizontal speed. And if the place is not free, then we want to stop moving, so we break out of this cycle. Alright, so let me explain this again so it's very clear. From here down, it's gonna be the actual movement by pixels. Okay, alright. So over here, we're entering into a cycle. The number of times that we want to move in this frame. We're running a frame, remember? So in this cycle, we enter and we check for if we are free from collisions of the solid group, either on the right or on the left. Depends on the movement we have. And if the place is free, then we move by 1 pixel our character. And remember, this cycle is gonna run for the amount of times we want to move in a frame. So we want to move 4 pixels in a frame, so this cycle is gonna run 4 times. And if the place is free, we're gonna move a pixel 4 times. So in a frame, 4 times we're gonna check per pixel if we're free to move. And if it's free to move, it's gonna move it. So by the next frame, our character is gonna be advanced by 4 pixels. So this is a pixel by pixel movement per frame. Alright, so this handles our horizontal movement. Now after we do this, we enter into another cycle that is gonna be handling the vertical movement. So let's actually do this real quick by copying and pasting. Let's copy this, control copy, control paste. This time we're gonna be checking our vertical speed. We're gonna be checking not on X, so let's cut this, but on Y. Paste it over here. Our vertical speed for solid. I hope this is clear. We're gonna be moving on the Y by our vertical speed. And this handles the vertical movement. It's the same exact code as up here, the same cycle, but instead of handling horizontal speed on X, it's gonna be handling the vertical speed on Y. So with this, it moves up or down. And with this, we should have a full platformer controller where we are checking, so we're setting a speed, we're checking if the player is hitting any input key that handles movement or jumping. And if that's the case, we set the speeds and we move by pixels on our horizontal speed and on our vertical speed. So let's verify this. Hit done. I always like to save before running, so let's run it. And there you go. Our character falls with gravity effect. Let's see that again. There you go. And if we hit the arrow keys, it moves. If we hit the A or D, it also moves. And if we hit spacebar, it jumps. And gravity effect, we have gravity effect when we're not hitting any platform, and it collides. It's checking pixel by pixel movement for the solid group and if it finds it, it breaks out of the code, remember? So it stops movement. And this is basically a platform character controller. It was very easy, and I hope you got the code clear. I hope I made the code clear. So we only have one more thing to do, because as you can notice, the camera is static, so we can actually right now run out of the frame and fall off. So let's fix that. Let's come over here to our character type. On create, we want to make the camera follow our character, and this is very easy. Just write this ct camera. We call the camera API. We'll make follow this, and with this code, the camera is gonna follow our player. Let's see. So our camera is following our player. But we can make this even better and very easy. Let's go ahead and do that. Hit over here and type. Let's create a border for our camera. Let's hit ct camera border x equals 450 and ct.camera border y equals 200. Once you set this, it's gonna give us a tolerance in the following of the camera. So you'll see. So see, we can move a little bit before the camera starts following, and once we reach certain distance, the camera starts following. And this is very nice. Thank you for staying all the way to the end, and I hope you liked the video and it was useful to you. And well, this concludes the short introductory series on ct.js. After this, I'm gonna make other series using the ct.js game engine. I really love this game engine. It's really nice, powerful. So I'm gonna be making other tutorials for full games. And of course, I'm gonna be leaving links in the description to this great game engine, so you can go ahead and download it, free and open source. And also, if you're a beginner developer, if a beginner game developer and you're barely getting started in this world, this is a great community. The Beginner Circle Jam, the community by AngrySmile, is great, beginner friendly. And if you have questions, if you need support, just moral support or anything, you can come over to this community and get together with good and positive people. And just before I go, I'm also gonna be making a beginner tutorial for those who don't know how to program and want to start programming. So if you wanna learn how to program, stay tuned. I'm gonna be leaving links to this community in the description, and I hope to see you around.